the first step is to really aim high. So what I did was I researched, okay, who's actually going to these powerhouse D1s, who's going to go high rounds in the draft, and I had a look at them. And what I kind of came across was the perfect game All-American game. And so this was an eye-opener for me. I was a kid in Australia and I was watching this on YouTube, and something that I realized was that all of them were throwing 93 plus as an 18-year-old. Alright, so today I want to talk about how to gain pitching velocity. So we all know how important it is to gain pitching velocity to get recruited to a D1 or become a professional baseball player. I think we're past that point of arguing if it's important or not. It is important. So a little bit about me. I was 16 and I was throwing 78 to 80 miles an hour. And so, but fast forward 2 years, I'm throwing about, low 90s to topping out in the mid 90s. And so I kind of want to talk to you about how I did that and the steps I took in order to achieve that. So let's dive in. So there were pretty much 5 steps that I followed to gain my pitching velocity, to go from 78 to 81 miles an hour to the low 90s to even touching the mid 90s. I touched 95, 96 when I was 18 years old. And so I gained, like 60 miles an hour during that time. But yeah, these are the 5 steps that I followed. So number 1 was you have to raise your benchmark. So I was a kid in Sydney, Australia, right? So baseball isn't a very big sport there. It's a growing sport, but there still aren't many players playing. And so back in Australia, if you threw like low 80s, it would be considered gas. And so if I wanted to become the best pitcher on my team, all I had to do was throw like 83, 84 miles an hour. And so a lot of my friends and teammates, I saw them doing that. I was like, hey, I'm just going to try to become the hardest throwers on my team. And to do that, it was 83, 84 miles an hour. And once they got there, they were kind of satisfied because they were the best on their team. But the problem that creates is that 84 miles an hour becomes a benchmark. And now you're aiming to throw 83, 84 miles an hour. But 83, 84 doesn't get you any Division I scholarships or get you drafted or even close to any of that. And so I think the first step is that you have to raise the benchmark. I know it's not a practical step. We'll get into those later in the video, but the first step is to really aim high. So what I did was I researched, okay, who's actually going to these powerhouse D1s, who's going to go high rounds in the draft, and I had a look at them. And what I kind of came across was the perfect game All-American game. And so this was an eye-opener for me. I was a kid in Australia and I was watching this on YouTube, and something that I realized was that all of them were throwing 93 plus as an 18-year-old. I'm like, damn, like you have to get to that level to go to a powerhouse or get drafted? And so that really changed my mindset to where I'm like, all right, I actually need to be aiming for 93, 94 miles an hour instead of 83, 84 miles an hour. And so once that kind of clicked in my head to where I changed my mindset, now I wasn't satisfied with 83, 84 miles an hour anymore. I was still hungry for more. And luckily I was hungry for more, because if I had stayed there at 83, 84 miles an hour, I wouldn't have been where I was. And so I kept training really hard. I kept doing my throwing program and I never let off. So the first step is to raise the benchmark, aim higher. Look at what all the best of the best are doing and try to get to that level, because you probably need to get to that level to achieve your goals. And so that's step 1, raise your benchmark. All right, step number 2 is you have to gain weight and muscle. So when I was throwing 78 to 80 miles an hour, I was weighing 175. I was super skinny. And so a big priority of mine became I need to gain weight, because when you're young, like, mass actually does equal gas. And so if you're a skinny kid, then you really have to prioritize gaining weight. And so I'm going to talk about a couple ways I did that. So firstly, I had to prioritize gaining muscle, and that's for two reasons. A bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. And so to be able to produce forces to throw in the 90s, you need the strength and the power to be able to actually throw 90 miles an hour. And a bigger muscle will really help with that. A bigger muscle produces more force, it's stronger. It's not always just for looks, especially if you're training the right way. Then if you're growing and you're gaining muscle mass, it's usually a stronger and more powerful muscle. And there's the saying of, I don't want to get too bulky, I don't want to get too tight and everything like that. I'm a pitcher, I want to be flexible, I don't want to gain muscle mass and become a bodybuilder. And look, like, if you're 175, you're super skinny. Like, you're not going to become a bodybuilder after a couple months of training. To become a bodybuilder, it takes like decades of specialized training to do that. So even if you do bodybuilding type workouts, you're still not going to look like one in a couple months. And we're not even doing bodybuilding type workouts anyway. So we're doing baseball specific workouts that help with increasing velo. Well, I hope you are anyway. And we're doing that, and we're prioritizing gaining muscle, because a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle and a more powerful muscle. Another reason is that body mass is directly correlated to pitching velocity. So I know there's a graph out there, I think it's from Tread Athletics, I'm not too sure, but it was a super interesting graph where it was like, as you go up in level, the body mass or the body weight went up. So high school, it was low body weight. College, it slightly went up a little bit. Professional, minor leagues, it went up a little bit. Major leagues, it was the highest. And so, the hardest throwers are in the major leagues. And so it is definitely correlated to pitching velocity. And obviously, like, mass doesn't equal gas sometimes, but if you're super skinny, like, and you're kind of bony like I was, muscle and gaining weight probably is your lowest hanging fruit. So I would definitely prioritize and attack that for sure. Alright, so how did I actually gain this weight? Lifting and everything is good, but the main thing that you need to do to gain this weight is to eat, and eat a ton. So I was a hard gainer, and so, notorious hard gainer, is hard to gain weight. It sucks, but my diet kind of looked like this. So in the morning, I would have a high calorie shake. I would throw everything in there, like protein shakes, creatine, even olive oil at sometimes, because it's calorically dense. Honey, any type of calorically dense foods, I was chucking in there, and I'm blending it, and I'm just chugging it because I didn't even want to taste it. It tasted terrible. But anyway, I would have that in the morning, and then peanut butter sandwiches. I had so many peanut butter sandwiches. I think I had about, I want to say like 3 to 5 a day. And so I'd have one of those for a snack right after my breakfast. And then I'd have my lunch. And my lunch was usually a big meal of like rice and chicken, some type of carb and some type of meat. And I would try to just mount my plate with food. And as much meat as possible and as much food on my plate as possible. Once I'm done with lunch, I have another PB sandwich, 1 or 2 of those. And then at night, I would have same kind of thing, a big carb and meat meal. And, I'd always tell my mom, hey, like, you gotta cook meals with lots of meat because I'm trying to gain weight. And so she would cook like, stir fries, chicken stir fries, beef stir fries, with rice, and she would do that for me, and I would just try to stuff myself. But yeah, after that, at night, I would have another snack. It might be a peanut butter sandwich again if I'm too lazy to make anything. It might be some kind of dessert or anything. To be honest with you, at that point, I didn't really care if it was like healthy or not. I was just like, I need to gain this weight because I'm probably going to burn most of it anyway. And so it probably wasn't the healthiest thing, but it definitely helped me gain a lot of weight, and I worked it off in the weight room. So I would eat as much as I can, and then I'd go train in the weight room and on the field as hard as I can, and that kind of burnt a lot of it off. But because I was in a caloric surplus, I would gain that weight. And if you're young, like 16 to 18, like you're going through puberty as well, so you're filling out, and so all that food is just going to help you gain all that muscle and weight. And so that's kind of what my diet looked like at the time. All right, so step number 3 is I did 2 high intensity throwing days a week. And so when I was training for velocity, I followed the Driveline throwing program. And in this program, there's this thing called a plyo velo day and a pull down day. And so the plyo velo day is, if you don't know, there are these things called plyo balls, and they are weighted balls that have, I don't know if it's like sand or some kind of like weight inside of them, and it's covered by like a rubber casing. And so it's like a soft thing. I think many of you will know, but if you don't, then look up plyo balls. And so I will grab these that have like all different weights and different colors, and I would go through a bunch of different drills and then radar gun each of them. And so the most basic one that I did was firstly a pivot pickoff. So you're facing your target, you're right here, you turn and then you throw. That was the first one. The second one was a roll in, so you're facing the target, you step and you throw. The third one was a rocker drill, where you side on to the target, you rock back and forth, pick your leg up and throw it as hard as you can. And the last one was either just like a normal pitching delivery or like a walk-in delivery throw, which was pretty much just pick your leg up and then throw, or you can walk into it. So you walk in, leg up, and then you throw. And so that's a very basic one. And I would do that with all the balls, and I would radar gun each throw. And I would try to beat my record each week. And so, I think there are like 4 different weighted balls for each drill. So that it's a good workout, because you're making I made, I think, 3 throws for each ball. So I was making 12 throws per drill, and if there were 4 to 5 drills, I was making 50 to 60 max effort throws. And the key is to have a radar gun, though. You need to have a radar gun, because you need to be able to track your progress. See, if you don't have a radar gun, then you don't know if you're throwing hard or not, and you don't want to accidentally be throwing slower just because you don't realize it. As a pitcher, it might feel like you're throwing hard, but the radar gun's saying that you're throwing slow, so you need to try even harder. And so having a radar gun is absolutely key. So yeah, that's the plyo routine that I did. And so the second drill that I did was pull downs. So the second drill that I did was weighted ball pull downs. And so if you don't know what they are, they're pretty much you sprint towards the target, turn, crow hop, and then just chuck it into the net. And you just see how high of a number you can put up on the velo board or the radar gun. It's also called like a running gun, but I love these. They're really fun. You can put up a lot of big numbers. It's not uncommon to throw over 100 with these, and so it's a ton of fun, and I love them. And the reason I love them is because, not just because like you can throw 102 or whatever. It teaches you athleticism, and it teaches you how to throw hard. There's a saying where it's like, if you want to throw hard, then you got to throw hard often. And weighted ball pull downs really teaches you that. When you're sprinting towards a target, turning and throwing as hard as you can, it's teaching you the intent to throw hard. And it might sound weird, but some people just don't throw hard because they don't have the intent to throw hard. They might be thinking, yeah, I'm throwing as hard as I can, but like, you're really not trying. that hard. And these weighted ball pull downs really highlights that. The pull downs can really push your limit into how hard you can throw, and then it teaches you intent to throw hard. It forces you to really put everything you have into the throw. And so it's also great to just sync up your throw, honestly. Like when you're running and then turning and then throwing, it can be a little bit difficult to sync up your arm with the throw. And so it's really good for that as well. And I attribute a lot of my velo increase to doing this every single week. It's called a weighted ball pull down protocol. So I did use weighted balls. This time, not the plyo balls, but I used the leather weighted balls. There are a ton of them on the internet, but I think I used a 3 ounce, 4 ounce, 5 ounce, which is the baseball, 6 ounce, and 7 ounce ball. And I'll do like 3 each. And so same thing with the plyo velo. I would track each throw with the radar gun. Again, radar gun is an absolute essential for velo training. You need to invest in it if you don't have one. And if you don't have one then, and you don't want to buy it, then I'm sorry, but you're not serious about velo development, because it's an absolute essential. But anyway, let's get back to it. I would make about 3 throws with each ball, and yeah, I would track it, and again, I'll try to beat my previous record and try to do that every single week. So after about 2 to 3 weeks of doing plyo velos, I would usually do plyo velos on Monday and then pull downs on Friday. After about 3 weeks, I would take a deload week, which was, like a week to take a rest and recover and give your body a break, because you can't be doing this every single week for months and months on end, because you'll get injured. These are high stress throwing programs, which is good because you need stress to improve, and stress leads to adaptation, and it allows you to throw harder. And so stress is very important, but you can't overstress your body. So after 3 weeks of doing that, twice a week, I took a deload week where I wouldn't do either of them. I would just have like light catch days and rest days and stuff like that to just really recover and then get ready for the next week. And I actually love deload weeks, because what I found was after my deload weeks, the first week back, I would usually PR, because I was all rested and I was ready, and I was like jittering to go, and I was like, all right, I'm going to beat my record from last month. And then, I felt fresh, and then I'll go out on my velo days and I'll just PR. And so I actually look forward to the deload weeks, and they are absolutely essential. You need to do them for preventing injuries, but also just for performance sake as well. All right, so step 4 is lifting. So there were pretty much 2 things that I focused on in the weight room. The first one was progressive overload, and the second one was speed and power training. So for progressive overload, how I think about it is that if you're like an inexperienced lifter, you don't need some fancy lifting program. You just need to stick to the basics. And I know it's not the sexy thing to hear, but when I was young, I followed the 5x5 program. And it's the most simple program ever. You pretty much do back squat, bench, and then some type of back exercise. You do 5 sets of 5 on each one. And then one day out of the week, you would do a deadlift instead of the squat. Or so you do back squat, bench, and then deadlift on that one day. So how it would look like was this. Monday, back squat, bench, row, or pull-ups, or something like that. Wednesday, same thing. Back squat, bench, row, or something like that. Friday, back squat, bench, deadlift. 5 sets of 5. And why this worked was because of progressive overload. And progressive overload is when you progressively increase the weight that you're able to lift over time. And so with the 5x5 program, every single time I was able to fully complete 5 sets of 5 with a weight, I would go up in weight. So for example, when I first started squatting, I could barely squat 135. I was weak as fuck. But, the 5x5 program got me to where I was squatting 300 plus pounds. And so how it worked was, all right, I'll do 135. And then I'll try to get 5 sets of 5 of that. Sometimes I'll get it, sometimes I wouldn't. So maybe if I didn't, on my 5th set, I was only able to get 4 reps or something, I would repeat that the next session. I would do 5 sets of 5 of the same weight of 135. And if I'm able to complete it this time, then I go up by 5 to 10 pounds. And I do it, and then I just repeat. And I just try to increase my weight every single week. And, it might be a small increase here and there, like 5 to 10 pounds. But over like a year or 2 years, that's a lot of weight that you're putting on the bar. And you can really make some progress doing that. I think one of my biggest regrets was not sticking to a program like this when I first started lifting. When I first started lifting, I was looking for fancy baseball specific workouts, stuff like that. And I feel like I lost out on some of the newbie gains. And newbie gains is when you first start lifting, you get crazy amounts of results because your body isn't used to lifting. And so you get a lot of strength gains, you get a lot of muscle gains quickly. And so if you follow something that just sticks to the basics and you progressive overload every single week, then you're going to really make some big progress. The one thing on that is that you do have to be in a caloric surplus during this. If you want to get those strength and muscle gains, you need to be eating a ton, because this workout routine, any workout routine, but to really take advantage of the newbie gains, you need to be in a caloric surplus. You're probably going through puberty and testosterone's running high, and you really want to take advantage of that. And one way to do it is to lift heavy and eat a lot. Alright, so the other thing that I trained in the weight room was power and speed. So how did I train power? I did a lot of plyometrics. And so plyometrics are pretty much just like jumps. So I would do lots of box jumps where you have a box and you jump onto it. High jumps, you just, like you're standing and then you drop down and jump. Broad jumps where you're standing and try to go as far as you can. High-ins where you're on one leg and you go lateral as far as you can. All kinds of that. All of that is awesome. You want to keep up athleticism. You want to train your jumping power because it definitely does help your pitching velocity. Another thing that I did was medicine balls. So any kind of exercise with medicine balls incorporated into your routine, they are absolutely awesome. I would say do a lot of rotational stuff because pitching is a rotational thing, and you want to be able to train that with a little bit of a heavy load. And so I mixed those in. I did a lot of plyometrics and I did a lot of medicine ball stuff. And the last thing I did to train power, and this is it gave me the most results for sure, was velocity-based training. And so what this is you hook up a machine that measures the bar speed of how fast you're lifting the weight, and it spits out a number. I think it's like meters per second or something like that. But basically you can track how fast you're lifting the weight. And so it's pretty much just like your throwing program where you pick a weight. For squats, it can be like 50% of your max, and you grab that and then you squat, and then you see how fast you can do it. And so every week you try to beat that. And when you're beating it consistently, you can up the weight a little bit, and then you repeat. And I wouldn't advise this to anyone, but at one point I was doing like 330 pounds for speed. I was doing it for like 0.8 or something like that, which is really quick for that amount of weight. It probably contributed to some of my back problems for sure, because shortly after that I started having back issues, and I wouldn't recommend anyone to really back squat. I did mention it a little bit, but if you can, stick to the front squat. It's a tough thing because your ego comes in and you're like, I can lift so much more weight back squatting, so I'm going to back squat. But trust me, you don't want back issues, because it derailed my career as soon as I had that back surgery. And so keep your back healthy. that's what I want to say. So yeah, stay away from the back squats if you can. You know, they're not bad if you want to do them like sometimes, but I would definitely rather you do like front squats. I would also do them with trap bar deadlifts. Trap bar deadlifts with the speed. I have the bar thing hooked up, and then I would either just lift it normally like this, like a deadlift, and then see how fast I can do it, or I'll do a jump with the trap bar. So I'd grab it and then I'd jump as high as I can and then see how fast it was. And again, I wanted to beat my record every single week, and I would do that. You can also do this with bench to increase your upper body explosiveness. And so you can do a hook it up to the bench and then go up and down and try to beat your previous record. For these speed stuff, you know, look up West Side Barbell by Louis Simmons. He really popularized it, but you want to be doing like 50, 55, 60% of your 1 rep max, and then work in that range. Because if you get too heavy, then now you're not moving quick enough to train speed and power. And if you get too light, then you're working on, you want to hit that threshold of 50 to 60% of your 1 rep max. That's what I read was the best for power development, and that's what I did, and it helped me a ton in increasing explosiveness in my lower half and my upper half as well. Alright, so the last step of gaining velocity is to take time off from playing. So you might be thinking like, what? Take time off from playing? Yeah, take some time off from playing and dedicate that to velocity-based training. You know, playing games is great because you become better at the game and you start to develop knowledge about the game and stuff like that. But if you're throwing slow and you want to dedicate some time to actually gaining that velo, then you have to take some time off from playing, because playing can, again, it might make you better at the game, but it's not going to increase your velo. Dedicating that time to increasing your velo would provide way more results than if you were playing. And so that's what I did. I took honestly close to 12 months off from actually playing baseball, and I dedicated that all to velocity-based training. And that's what I attribute my success to, was that I had all that time where I didn't have to worry about, oh, I gotta go out and compete and throw 100 pitches on the weekend, or I need to go out to practice and coach wouldn't let me do this thing, or all of that stuff. Like, I didn't have to worry about it. I did my program that I was programmed by my coach. It was a driveline throwing program, velo program, and I would do that every single week, week after week, week after week, and stack those. And by doing that for 12 months, I mean, that's how I gained so many miles in the short time frame that I had. And so if you're playing a lot, I would consider, and if your goal is to get to the higher levels, like get recruited to a D1 or get drafted or something, and you're throwing pretty slow right now, I'd consider taking some time off and really investing in yourself by getting a coach or buying a program or something like that you really like and trust, and then taking 6 to 12 months to just hammer that program and see how good and how hard you can actually throw. And so yeah, that's what I did. Instead of throwing a bullpen in the middle of the week, I did a plyo velocity day. Instead of throwing 100 pitches on the weekend and playing a game, I did a weighted ball pull down day. And so, you know, doing that for months and months is how I gained that velo. So those are the 5 steps that I followed to gain my pitching velocity. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you need any help with gaining velocity, then message me on Twitter. I am running a one-to-one coaching program right now for pitchers who want to gain pitching velocity. I know how hard it was for me, and so I want to help as many people as possible. And so yeah, hit me up if that's something that you're interested in. I hope this video helps you, and I wish you all the best in your baseball career.